Thank you so much, David, and thank you all for being here today. I know it's a Friday afternoon, and it's gloomy out there, but I hope you feel safe, and I hope you feel welcome for the next hour as we present different stories, different experiences, different facets of the Chinese Communist Party today. Just for some context, I come from a family that survived communism, and thankfully I was born in Houston in 1999, but I did grow up in a community where I felt like I wasn't very welcomed, and I felt like I had to hide my religious beliefs because I grew up in such a huge Chinese diaspora in Houston. And I always wondered why that was. And so through my work, through high school, through college, I've always tried to find out that reason. What made the CCP persecute Falun Gong? What made it persecute the Uyghurs? Why did it act so hostile towards Hong Kong, towards Taiwan? And I think I have some answers for you today, not all, but let's see. Yeah. If you guys don't know what Falun Gong is, or Falun Dafa, it is a Buddhist spiritual practice that kind of went viral in China, and for that reason, this is Beijing, and for that reason, the Chinese Communist Party decided to crack down on it. You can go to the next slide as well. There's 4 photos. This is Jianglusi. You can go to the next slide. Shenyang, China. You get the point. You can go to the next slide. And all of these people, meditation is half of the story. The other half is that they believe in truth, compassion, and forbearance. And so these obviously are antithetical to the Chinese Communist Party's own values and own beliefs. So then leader Zheng Zhi vowed he would eradicate all of these people, 100 million people, in 3 months. That was his goal. That was his cultural revolution. And it's written in directives. You can find it on Chinese government websites as well. So every single weekend, I would go to the Chinese consulate with my parents, and even in elementary school, I would tell my classmates in Texas about the human rights atrocities going on. And a lot of them were really surprised. I mean, we're elementary school kids, so a lot of them were like, how could this be happening? I thought China was democratic. A lot of people thought that way, that they were becoming more democratic. And Chinese people are so amazing, they're so kind. China as a country is such a beautiful country, and I agree with all that. But the point is, China is not represented by the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese people are not, the Chinese government does not have in good faith the Chinese people. And I want to show that through my slides today. Real quick, I actually have, you can go to the next slide. I actually have a first-hand experience with the authoritarian control of the CCP myself. When I was 12, I visited my lovely grandmother in Inner Mongolia, and this was my first time seeing her in years, and so I was really excited. But as soon as I land at the airport, we have people tailing us, like black cars tailing us, in my uncle's car, and as soon as we get into the threshold of my grandmother's house, 3 policemen come knocking. They come knocking, and they storm in the door. They're shouting, they're screaming. They tell my grandmother, can we take your granddaughter, somewhere to ask her questions? And she's terrified. I honestly thought it was some sort of James Bond movie that my dad always liked. And plus, I was already 5'10" at 12 years old, so I was actually towering over all 3 policemen. And it just seemed so silly because they were so afraid of me teaching her meditation, or of me telling her how America is really like, or how Falun Gong does not believe in violence, and Falun Gong is actually not a threat to the political power in China. And so eventually my uncle bought me a ticket back to Shanghai, so I hugged her and I left, and that was my last memory of her because she grew sick, and she actually passed away that same year. So this leads me to all of my research. You can go to the next slide. I specialize in, the Falun Dafa Information Center specializes in documenting persecution. What does that look like in numbers? How many stories are left untold? What voices can we give to the voiceless? And so last year, unfortunately, we crossed the threshold of 5,000 documented deaths. And documented deaths mean we have their full name, we have contact of their family members, we have the exact prison, labor camp, detention center that they died in, and we also have more details about their job, how they died, and more details that can be verified through different organizations. So these are documented deaths. And in addition to those, there are undocumented deaths. A major portion of this is forced organ harvesting victims. This isn't something that I want to talk about today in detail, but organ harvesting in China is state subsidized and state run, and military hospitals are the one to do it. So as you can see from this chart, transnational repression is worldwide. In 2021, Freedom House found that the Chinese regime engages in the most sophisticated, global, and comprehensive campaign of transnational repression in the world, and one of its primary targets is Falun Gong. This persecution manifests in 4 main ways: physical attacks, disinformation, sabotaging Falun Gong-related events, and infiltration of universities. And I'll touch upon these bit by bit as we go. Falun Gong practitioners outside of China have thus faced break-ins to their home, physical assaults, and even shootings. So you can go to the next slide. This is in Australia. Last year, during a flower festival in Canberra, of all places, this Falun Gong practitioner had on her car, "The CCP does not equal China." And 2 Chinese nationals, young men, spray painted her car, and she was notified of this, and so she went to stop them, and they elbowed her, pulled her up by the throat, and smashed her on the ground. Both of them were convicted, obviously, but this is her after the event, after she was attacked. And then you can go to the next slide. And this is in New York 2 years ago. The petition booth right here that you see says, "Truthfulness, compassion, forbearance, and the persecution of Falun Dafa." And this Chinese national is seen tearing it, and he was charged with a 4th-degree hate crime by NYPD and the New York court. But according to leaked Chinese government documents, this behavior is exactly what the Chinese government wants, and this is exactly what they're aiming for. In one document, the Chinese government had a directive to, quote, "push concerned countries," meaning Western countries, "to ban or restrict activities of Falun Gong." And so Chinese nationals like these have been deceived by propaganda like that and have physically assaulted practitioners even in our home. You can go next. So if you could play this video, this was during the G20 summit, actually a few days ago. This is on a popular beach, so you see 6 Brazilian Falun Gong practitioners, and they have a petition. So those banners on the bottom, that's something that they do every single weekend, and they have a petition site where they ask Brazilians or tourists in Rio de Janeiro to sign their petition to end the human rights atrocities. And since it was such a politically charged event, I guess, during the G20 summit, even though this wasn't even there, this was on a beach, within minutes you see all of these Chinese nationals wearing the same white hat printed with the PRC flag on it. So it's coordinated, and these flags are a very common tactic that they use to block anyone from seeing the petition site. Last year in Epoch in San Francisco, the same exact thing happened with the same coordinated group. You can go to the next slide. So this actually is in Argentina as well. Just one last example. This is a Chinese diplomat. He is a government official, and in front of Argentina police, he is punching a local practitioner in Argentina because he's wearing the shirt that says truth, compassion, forbearance in Spanish and Chinese. So those are physical attacks. When it comes to disinformation and other attacks that the Chinese Communist Party has committed, there's a group called Shinyun Performing Arts. You might have heard of it. It's a renowned Chinese classical dance company. And this week in New York, a CCP agent called Chen Jun was actually convicted and sentenced to prison for 20 months for trying to strip Shinyun's nonprofit status and status as a performing arts company. And how he tried to do it was bribe an IRS official. He tried to bribe an IRS official last year $50,000 in New York. But what he didn't know was that the agent was actually an undercover FBI agent, which is how he got caught. But this is how the CCP operates. It's a lot of sabotage, it's a lot of espionage. And this case is one in over 30 countries that we've documented. And so it's definitely the tip of the iceberg. So why does the CCP, oh, you can keep going, yeah. Why does the CCP aim to sabotage Shinyun? Because it is reviving traditional Chinese culture, and in the performances, there's a dance performance that actually portrays modern China and human rights abuses through dance. And so a study by our organization documented over 130 incidents over the past 17 years that Shinyun has been operating. They've faced intimidation, harassment, and one principal dancer, Stephen Wong, his mother was actually sentenced to prison for 4 years because of his involvement in the company. Beijing's disinformation campaign were also revealed this one tidbit from a former officer in the security agency. He actually left the Chinese Communist Party, fled to Australia, and he testified in Parliament that, quote, Falun Gong practitioners all over the world are under CCP surveillance. I personally received intelligence information about Falun Gong practitioners in Australia, the United States, and Canada. And another similar incident also happened in 2005, and that previous military officer said he estimated over 1,000 agents were in Australia undercover and more are in the United States. He didn't say how much. And you can take a university campus as a representation of their words and of these directives. The presence and activities of practitioners like David are actually threatened by organizations such as the nearby Chinese consulates or even Chinese organizations on campus who are funded by consulates. So one student from Chicago told us that the then CSSA president, CSSA is the Chinese Students and Scholars Association. It's actually very popular for international students who come from mainland China and they want to learn culture, they want to learn language and bond together in this community that they have of study abroad students. It's become a proxy of the CCP, and this is what I mean. The Chinese embassy in Chicago asked him to remove me from the CSSA due to my involvement in Falun Gong activities. I had a personal website that published content about Falun Gong. I was later told that somehow the Chinese consulate of Chicago noticed my connection with Falun Gong and asked the then CSSA administration to remove me from the CSSA. So he was kicked out of his club because the Chinese consulate officials ordered the president to do so. And that's honestly doesn't apply to any sort of honor code that American colleges have. I feel like even as Americans, if we're afraid of or we're being intimidated to not talk about human rights atrocities, even in our own colleges, then like what safe space really is there? We actually did a nationwide survey of this following the quote, and out of 45 American college campuses with a Falun Gong presence, direct or indirect CCP-linked surveillance, persecution, and propaganda was evident. Among the respondents, 7 reported at least one incident of surveillance, physical or digital, and in some cases, they also reported involvement of Chinese government actors in surveillance and reprisals, like the Chicago student. And so, to wrap up, I really want to talk about Falun Gong's response. How have practitioners been responding to the persecution? It's been going on for over 25 years, and what I really want to say is what I said in the beginning. Falun Gong really emphasizes non-violence. And the goal of Falun Gong practitioners worldwide, in over 108 countries now, is evident in Africa, in Argentina, in Brazil, in Europe, even in Asia. All practitioners want are 2 things. 1, we want to counter the persecution. We want to counter the propaganda, we want to counter all of these narratives, and we want to speak up for ourselves. And 2, we want to convince Chinese people to not play into the cards of the Chinese Communist Party. We want them to stop persecuting, stop reporting, and stop participating, even in the United States, these actions that are actually right up the CCP's alley. We want them to stop being puppets, basically, and think for themselves. And although it's simple, the difficulty of this really goes underappreciated. In the case of that Australia Flower Festival, she was attacked, but she didn't retaliate. She took them to court, but she never had any, even in court, she told the lawyer and she told the judge, I don't wish them to have any punishment, I just want them to say they're sorry, and I want them to know that Falun Gong is not bad. I want them to know that the persecution is happening, and even if they say it's not, the truth is clear. And I think I'll leave it to the next speakers to talk about dissemination in China and petition efforts outside of China. I know one of the speakers today will be talking about all of the efforts, mainstream and grassroots, that have been going on to actually ask Chinese nationals and Chinese people around the world to quit the Chinese Communist Party. And that is such an admirable effort. It's very difficult as well. And one last point is, I think advocacy really does truly change the hearts and mind of people. 7 years ago, I talked to a Chinese graduate student, and as soon as he heard that I practiced Falun Gong, he was so excited, and he was just so supportive of what I was doing. And he said he understood, and he would support me to the end. And even after he's gone back to China and he's starting work there, we're still very good friends. And I feel like a lot of that really speaks to the persistence and the nonviolent actions and responses of Falun Gong practitioners worldwide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the nice introduction and kind invitation to this event. First of all, I'm not really a human rights activist or political activist of any kind. I'm just a humble research scientist. So what we're going to tell you today is my experience of legal research in the past couple of years. And, forgive me, because this is really the first time I ever stood up in public to talk about this subject matter, which I have been quietly working on for a couple of years now. But the occasion, is for me to really have to make a strong statement in the public because of the dire situation facing Hong Kong right now. And I'll tell you why. So forgive me if I'm not used to talking about politics and this kind of matter. So, and the concepts I'm going to tell you is brand new. Nobody talk about it, nobody think about it. I'm the first one. And I'm the only one who is really crying out loud to say, hey, there's something going on very dangerous, and there's a way out that we can do and work on to reverse it. And when I tell my friends and other folks, nobody believe me. And everybody would tell me, hey, are you crazy? Don't you know that in Hong Kong it's hopeless? It's dying city, and rule of law is dead. Well, why are you still talking about it? And I said, no, you don't know. I'm a scientist, and I'm an MIT scientist. I used to work on things that was impossible. Nobody think about it. I'm a dreamer, and we made breakthroughs. So let me tell you how that works. First line. So, let's see. Okay, for those of you who are not familiar with Hong Kong, as you know, that in the last few years, things have been rapidly crumbling, and from a very vibrant, thriving city, amazingly, in such a short while, from being one of the international, financial centers to now become a, center of the past and a laughing stock for many people, even in China. And the crux of the matter is, one can see how a system can crumble when you lose the very fabric that makes up the society. And just this year, we have this Nobel Prize in economics telling us, how the political system is very important, for a country or for a region's, economy. But what they missed out is, it's not only the political system, it is the legal system. It is the rule of law that matters. First line. So, okay. So, I'm proud to take this opportunity to introduce a brand new initiative, what I call Hong Kong Rule of Law Independence. It is a call to defend Hong Kong's constitutional autonomy. Now, the term independence is a no-no in China, we know that, okay? But in Hong Kong, amazingly, under the so-called one country, two system framework set out in the Sino-British Joint Declaration, we are indeed promised a high degree of autonomy. But of course, now we know that it's just all a joke. It never materialized. And that's why we need to talk about rule of law independence. It's a brand new concept. And as a matter of fact, it is an independence that Hong Kongers are still entitled to claim lawfully. And people don't even know about it. They give up. And they give up out of, despair and lack of knowledge or whatever. But this is really the key to energizing, people to reinvigorate our hope and help us to stand up and keep moving again. So the acronym of this initiative is called Hong Kong Rolling. It's a reminder, the fact that this initiative is really the key for us to reclaim autonomy and get Hong Kong moving again. Okay, and let me tell you why and how. Next slide. Forgive me, these are very complex and difficult concepts. I'm really digesting and trying to articulate it the first time, so I hope I can manage to convince you. Now, this is a situation where in the past in Hong Kong, when we were in the colonial years, for more than 100 years, Hong Kong never had any democracy. the governor and the legislature all appointed by Britain. But the only thing we have is rule of law, independence. We have an independent judiciary. And we have, of course, the Privy Council, which serves as the Supreme Court in England, but it's apolitical. So, in terms of the judiciary, we're free of politics, and that's why all those years when I grew up, we enjoy tremendous freedom and rights. Nobody feared, of course it's not perfect, but Hong Kong was able to thrive as, a city, and eventually becoming an international city with financial high standing. That's why judicial independence and rule of law is so vital, more than just the political system itself. Now, after 1997, of course, we were promised we have a high degree of autonomy, meaning that, well, we have separation of powers in Hong Kong, and the legislature and the executive, the chief executive are elected, general election. Okay? It's not the total autonomy because the chief executive and all the high officials have been appointed by Beijing. So they do have some control. And that's why the concept of high degree of autonomy, not total autonomy, not independence. But unfortunately, even a lot of Hong Kongers don't even understand what it means by high degree of autonomy. They totally don't understand. This is a new concept. They don't understand how this political structure was constructed. And some felt it was total autonomy, total independence, but from Beijing perspective, we have control. You have to listen to us. So that's the conflict between the two parts, and when you don't understand each other, a lot of problem arises. Okay? But fortunately, we still enjoy a high freedom of judicial independence. We no longer have the Privy Council. We don't have to go to the People's Supreme Court in China for Supreme Court. We have our own Court of Final Appeal. Okay? So we still have a high degree, rule of law is intact despite all the political infiltration and influences. So for 20-some years after the handover, Hong Kong was doing relatively okay. We were able to thrive and develop and becoming even better as a financial center. Judicial independence. Okay. That's the promise. But of course, this high degree of autonomy never materialized. It's just empty hope. This is what was promised us, and this is what it looks like today. Next. So I don't have to tell you more about it. Everybody understands it. This is how Hong Kong has become reddish. You can see all the political infiltration and control. This is the idea of firm grip of the system in Hong Kong, right? So right now, the executive branch and legislative plan are all patriots only participation. No democracy. The election is just a joke, okay? There's nothing. Even the judiciary is somewhat infiltrated because of the fact that some judges are designated national security law judges, and of course they are handpicked by Beijing, and so of course they only serve the purpose. But fortunately, not all of them. There's still a good part of many judges are still relatively independent, and we still have the Supreme Court, not Supreme Court, the Court of Final Appeal, which also invites overseas judges to participate. And of course, they have a relative degree of independence, although they are not allowed to participate in national security law. So this is why it is somewhat pinkish. It's not totally red yet. So that means if there's anything to do, the judiciary is the only battlefield that we can still participate in. Not the judiciary, not the executive. There's no hope in those areas. So how to fight the war and fight the battle? And this is very important because the judiciary decides how the whole society works and orchestrated. This is the meaning of rule of law. People don't understand what is rule of law. Rule of law means you are ruled by law. And the law only rules, and everybody have to listen. Okay, next slide shows you. This is the rule of law. In Hong Kong, the rule of law is founded on the Constitution, the so-called Ministry Constitution Basic Law. Now, the Basic Law is an independent legal framework. It's a mini constitution. People don't understand how important it is. In Hong Kong, we only go by the Basic Law. We don't have to worry about the so-called Constitution in China. Now, of course, a lot of Chinese officials want to tell us, oh, you are part of China, and so you have to listen to the Constitution. No, 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 no. The Basic Law says very clearly, and it was, ratified. It was actually enacted by the National People's, what's it called, Council, right? This is Basic Law. And they promise and they agree that we don't have to listen to anything else except the Basic Law. And this is how things work in Hong Kong. But unfortunately, this so-called Bible in Hong Kong, few people pay attention to, and few people even understand fully, what it means, what it stands for. So this is how it works out. So in an ideal society, we have the Basic Law, and there's always some degree of governmental overreach in any society. In Hong Kong, no special. So the way the rule of law works is that the defense, representing interests of citizens, will have to defend, the citizens against any overreach, having them of the rights and freedoms, and the court will have to act as a referee. They decide who's right, who's wrong. Okay? And for this system to work, two things. The defense lawyers have to be efficient. What do you mean by efficient? Meaning that it's accessible to ordinary citizens. You can find lawyers easily. But unfortunately, in Hong Kong, legal fees very, very expensive. I just found out. Lawyers' fees even more expensive than the United States. It's just shocking. So it's not accessible. And then a lot of them are training in common law tradition in the British times. And nobody really studied basic law. Or the Bill of Rights, which is, another, constitution-like framework that protects the right and interests of Hong Kong people. And now, of course, we have even the Hong Kong national security law that nobody understands. So this is the problem. So that's why, even in the best of time, the rule of law is never perfect. And the judiciary, we believe in every court and Supreme Court. And as a matter of fact, in Hong Kong, judges are held in high respect, and especially the Court of Final Appeal, like the Supreme Court in the United States, the fact that they are gods, whatever they say must be right, and you have to listen. But unfortunately, as I found out to my astonishment, the Hong Kong judges, even the Supreme Court judges, are not that good. They're not erudite. What do you mean by erudite? Erudite means you need to know everything. The basic law and all the other laws. Very often they fail. Time and again, they misinterpret the basic law. Nobody knows. The entirety of Hong Kong, nobody knows. It's only when I started, after I retired from MIT, I started doing all these issues. Then I found out so many legal errors that nobody even had heard about. That's what it motivated me into saying that I must do something. I must to try and defend the rule of law in Hong Kong. Next time. So what happened? With the introduction of national security law, everything breaks down. Because now it becomes a weapon, a nuclear bomb that the regime can use to impose the system. And when you have a new, so gigantic system, legal system, it all of a sudden, just like a nuclear bomb dropped in Hong Kong, everybody was stunned. They've never heard of anything like this. They don't know how. It takes a lot of time to analyze a new legal system, even if it is a good system. And of course, not national security law is not a good system. It is bad, but not as bad as things that we're seeing now. It is bad, even worse, because even the good parts are misunderstood by the legal community. That's what made it even worse. So with this national security law, everything breaks down. Legal system is not accessible, and people just go by whatever national security law tells you. And that's why every case is, the prosecution always win, 100%, efficiency. That's why the reason is we don't have any defense at all. It is almost like Russians invading Ukraine with all the tanks and everything. We don't have any weapons. We only have some old weapons. We don't have anything to fight back. Or even if the U.S., the European Union, supply them with some modern weaponry, nobody knows how to use them. Nobody knows how to fight, and you are going to fight a losing battle. That's why rule of law is there. Rule of law is there not only because of national security, but because of the failure of the entire legal system. And people don't understand that. So what do we do next? To make things work again, we have an invasion of national security. We have to swallow it. It is a fact. We cannot just tell them, oh, don't come. They're going to come. They're going to be imposing. So the only thing you can do is to army up and defend yourself. And how did you do this? The court is not efficient. They're not independent. They're afraid. They're afraid because they don't know what they're doing. As I said, they don't understand what the national security law is. They don't understand the basic law. They have weaponry that they don't know, and so that's what they are afraid. They abandon these. So forget the court. Defense equally. So many cases, overwhelming. Nobody available. It's very expensive, and the cost, unfortunately, is borne by the first wave of political defenders. Often, just young, and they don't have any means to defend themselves. They don't have the, Jimmy Lai, being a tycoon was the only exception. Of course, he has the resources, but all the other ones, they don't have that fortune to, and even if they have a fortune, the lawyers there are overwhelmed, and they don't have the means of understanding to fight back. That's why we all fool. So that's why now the people have to step up. We, the people, have to step up. But unfortunately, nobody knows how. Everybody's freeing. Everybody said, Lord, rule of law's dead. Forget it. Hong Kong is hopeless. Because nobody knows how. But I'm going to tell you, there is a way. There's a way to fight back, to defend ourselves. And we, the people, have to work together and act together. We can make things work again next month. So this is Rule of Law Independence Initiative. And up until now, it is a one-man initiative. I'm a one-man warrior. Nobody helps me. Nobody helps me. And I tell people, everybody laughs at me. So what are we going to do? Mission statement is twofold. One is legal research. That's the foundation of any law. Now, remember, we are fighting a legal war. If you fight a legal war and you don't know the law itself, forget it. That's not your job. Of course, 99% of the common citizens, they're not equipped and they're not educated. So, you cannot ask an ordinary citizen to act as a soldier to fight Russia, for example. You cannot do that. You have to be equipped. You have to be knowledgeable. That's why we do very rigorous foundational research, particularly on basic law, the Hong Kong Bill of Rights, and particularly the national security And that's why, because, as I told you, the Hong Kong lawyers, they are well trained in common law, but few of them, if any, and I've seen very few, none, really knows or well equipped, in these areas. And that's why our research will fill this gap to help them to enrich their field of knowledge, so that when they go to fight legal battle in court, they are more well-rounded and they have more legal knowledge to have a fighting chance to help the Hong Kong people. But more importantly, doing all this legal research will allow us to look at the court themselves with a microscope that nobody else has ever seen before. People just look at the surface. And you look at the news coverage, everybody is talking about this surface. Oh, these cases are wrong, there's so much injustice, why are they doing that? If you just keep talking about how the court rules, you never can win. Because why? They will just tell you, we have judicial independence in Hong Kong. Judicial independence is their shield. Nobody can touch them. For example, you're going to say, okay, we're going to sanction you, judges, because your ruling says that you're putting so many people. No, you cannot do that. You cannot punish a judge because of how he rules, not the outcome. You have to find out behind the outcome what went wrong. A judge can only be punished if he or she committed misconduct. This is the only way. You have to find out and show that the judge committed misconduct in the ruling. And that will go beyond the service of the convicted people. For example, in this just a week earlier, the Hong Kong court sentenced 45 legislators and put them in from 4 and 2 months up to 10 years in jail, and they still appealing that sentence still. Everybody was crying and saying, oh, this is so much injustice. You can attack the ruling all you want, but you cannot reverse the situation. And even political pressure is not going to reverse. And that's why I put in a lot of time and effort to dissect, to analyze what's behind this ruling. And the court always have the way of telling people, they wrote very lengthy judgments, nobody can read or understand, and that's how they can stay away from any criticism. But I'm a scientist. I used to be critiquing all kinds of arguments on the paper. So I'm able to put a legal microscope to really screen through it. And then there's so much nonsense. I'm talking about constitutional nonsense. It is not just common sense nonsense that everybody talks about in the recent reports. You have to talk about the very foundational level, the constitutional level. And you have to identify all these legal errors one by one. That's how the defense, if they choose to go to appeal to court, they have to learn how to argue and use all these arguments in the defense. Instead of trying to defend just by playing the game of arguing with the court, oh, I have not done this, I'm doing this, that and that, because that you misunderstand. Once you begin arguing with the court about these facts, you already lose. You already lose. Because how to interpret the facts is entirely up to the judges. That's their discretion. There's nothing to bind them to say that you must rule like this, you must rule. It's entirely their discretion. The only thing that can bind them is the Constitution. If they've committed a constitutional error, you expose it, then there's no argument. But how to expose the constitutional error, the constitutional misjudgment? You have to do research. You have to go deeper. That's why I need to spend all this time. So, in the past months, I have filed 2 reports or 2 complaints against the Supreme Court or the Court of Final Appeal Judges. on 2 landmark cases. Those are the pivotal cases affecting fundamentally the rights and freedoms of Hong Kong that nobody knows about or cares about. People grumble about it, but they don't know what to do. I found this complaints. Okay, I'll finish first. Okay, I found these complaints, and the great majority of complaints they just go away. But my complaints they keep and they settle. And that's why I went to the overseas judges. The overseas judges, they are foreigners. I tell them about these complaints. And you know what? 2 weeks later, 3 of them resigned. And it's widely reported in the news and the fugitives. And people didn't know why. They just kept guessing. They didn't know somebody was doing things underneath, behind the scenes. Nobody knew about it. So, next time. So, they finally said, okay, I want to go through this if you can forgive. Because this is, I'm telling you this timeline, the death of free speech in Hong Kong from beginning to end. And in July 2020 is the introduction of national security law. And everybody thought that this is the killer. This is really how Hong Kong is doing and everything. No, of course it's a very bad law, and it causes a lot of damage. But the extent of the damage is nothing to compare with what is called now known as the sedition law. The sedition law means when you say anything that the government doesn't like, and you commit a crime, and you can be rounded up, Social Security, and you'll be jailed. All right. So in July, 2 months later, in September, Tang Williams becomes the first person arrested on sedition charges, and this is the first time when, in Hong Kong history, in decades, when people are incriminated because of what they speak, not what they do. Okay. And fast forward to December 2021. Now, at that time, when Tang was arrested, sedition, nobody even knew or cared about it. They didn't even know that such a law existed until this December 2021. Another case, so-called famous Sheep Village case, the Court of Final Appeal ruled that sedition law used to be a criminal ordinance. And they all of a sudden said that, oh, it belongs in the national security law. Well, this is a great leap of faith because, to translate one law from one system into another is not the judge's business at all. It is legislation. Only legislators can do that. And whole of Hong Kong, nobody understands, nobody didn't say a word. I'm the first person to expose this impropriety. This is an overreach. This is ultra-virus work. That doesn't, stand. The court must reverse this decision. And once it is reversed, you know what happens? All of the people charged with sedition, have to be set free because they're subjected to undue process. And that's why they are so afraid when I filed this complaint. Just one person, I filed a complaint. They frozen. They don't know what to do. They want to sweep it. But I expose it to the overseas judges. It becomes, known to them now, so nobody can escape from that. So fast forward, Tang was tried and convicted. He was the first convicted. And then he appealed, denied, because as I said, nobody knew how to defend, citizen charges. It's a new law, and nobody really has any idea. I was the only one who did all the research for sedition, and I told all the defense lawyers, none of them listened to me. So now it's reaching to the stage of the final appeal. And the final appeal court in August, they did a screening, and they ruled sedition law to be constitutional. Constitutional. It is unconstitutional in anywhere else in the world. And they rule constitutional. They allow other parts of the appeal to go through to have a full hearing in January 2025. But he threw away this constitutional constitutional argument. And once you do that, the whole case is doomed, because whether or not the case will stand or be dismissed hinges exactly on whether it is constitutional. And it's confirmed here. They flew away with so absurd arguments, totally inappropriate. And the entirety of Hong Kong, nobody even knew about the situation. Nobody cared. But this case is proceeding to final hearing in January, in 1.5 months from now. This will be the final death sentence for free speech in Hong Kong. Why? Because once the Court of Final Appeal decides that sedition is constitutional and Tam's case is thrown out, it becomes an ultimate precedent. In all of our cases in Hong Kong, this will be the rule of the land. And nobody, before all the decisions are lower courts, they don't carry any binding effect. The Court of Law, this is the final moment that all of us Hong Kongers must wake up and join hands and tell the Court of Final Appeal, like I'm doing. I'm just one man there. I'm telling them, they're afraid. If 10 people can join me in filing a complaint against them, 100 people, 1,000 people, a million people filing a complaint against the Court of Final Appeal, they must listen. This is our power of voting, our power of the voice of the people, but nobody knows about it. Nobody, and nobody cares. You are entitled to exercise this power, don't you understand? I am exercising mine, and I hope all of you, Hong Kongers, can join me do the same. I'm sorry for spending so much, but this is so dire, so important. I just wanted to let everyone understand, hear the message. This is the final alarm. If we don't arm up, if we don't do anything, Hong Kong, free speech, when once free speech is dead, everything is gone. Okay.
Thank you so much for your informative talk.
20 years ago, on November 19th, the Epoch Times published the 9 commentaries of the Communist parties, which exposed all the lies and propagandas, and really helped not only people understand what's really going on, because think of when you live in China, live in the communisms, you only hear one-sided stories. And so the 9 commentaries play a very pivotal role. It's kind of like a wake-up call. And this wake-up call is really helping close to 440 million Chinese Communist Party members, the Youth League, and the Young Pioneers withdraw from the memberships. And this is an opportunity to transition from communistic China to new communist states. And this is super, super important. And just a follow-up to Dr. Poon's remarks. Actually, the Epoch Times Hong Kong edition was published for the past 23 years. Yesterday, we have a celebration for 23 years. For 23 years, we've been given a voice to the voiceless. As you can imagine, after 1997, when there was no longer the British colonial rule, the free press has been suffer a lot. And the Epoch Times has been the beacon of hope, has been giving the voice to voiceless, has been covering extensively in the umbrella movements and all the pro-democracy protests, and certainly will continue to manifest the voice like Dr. Poon. And it's really important that as press, we have to give to the voiceless. And that's why the 9 commentaries play such a crucial role. And lots of people say, why does it matter? Like, I'm not in China. Well, you may or may not be aware that many of the 401k or 403b or the thrift saving plans, those funds, many of those invest directly or indirectly in the communist China. So it is important that we are being informed. And think of if communism disappeared from mainland China, what would it be like? Think of for 5,000 years of civilizations, there was no communism. And in China's history, dynasty comes and go. Just overnight, it changed a different dynasty. So it is very possible to change. And that's why 440 million Chinese Communist members, Youth League members, and Young Pioneers members have withdrawn from the parties. They see it as a sinking Titanic. You do not want to sink with the Titanic. In fact, you think of the Red Brick Wall is crumbling, just like Berlin Wall crumbled in 1989. It could happen tomorrow, and it could happen very fast. Maybe you say, well, how can I help? Well, as US citizens, here you have a chance. There is a Falun Gong Protection Act that's currently in the Senate. You can call your senators, ask your senators to support the Falun Gong Protection Act, which is really exposing the forced organ harvesting. Let me give you a little bit of histories. For the 7+ decades of the Communist rule, first, they promised the farmers will be a redistribution of the lands, but they never did. It's a way of confiscating the wealth. Then 1966 to 1976 is the 10-year Cultural Revolutions. Many people perished. All of you sitting here are educated. You would not have escaped during the Cultural Revolutions. And then the 1989, the Tiananmen Square massacre. Students with their weapons, they want democracy. Just like others want democracy in Eastern Europe, they got us, but not in China. And in 1999, the persecution of Falun Gong. So every decade, people being killed. And the Falun Gong Protection Act is very important because Falun Gong practitioners, they don't drink, they don't smoke, and they are being targeted for the organs. There's no one wants a smoker's lung, an alcoholic person's liver, and the forced organ harvesting has been happening since 1999. And so your voice and calling your senators, will really help to push the Falun Gong Protection Act to the finishing lines, which already fully passed in the House of Representatives. So I would like to close to say that at Epoch Times, we continue to bring truth, tradition, and hope to our readers. And since the publication of the 9 commentaries, we have inspired 414 million people withdrew from the parties. And since 2018, we published The Spectre of Communism Ruling the World, which is another important editorial series that really exposes how communism, the spectre of communism, is penetrated, infiltrated into every facet of society, from education to judicial systems. So I strongly encourage you to read about it and to spread about it, and because understanding how communism is infiltrating, evil and communism is kind of two sides of the coins. And only when we speak up, just like a small candle can light up the whole rooms. So every one of you, whether you watch this online or in the audience, and tell your friends, all it takes is to speak out, because silence will not help. But by speaking up, we can change for the better, and we can accelerate the fall of communism and wipe out the specter of communism, so that the whole world will live under rule of law, under transparency, and a more peaceful and more harmonious situations. Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm on a long road trip, and so I'm in Florida right now, in a bookstore, to speak to you online. And thank you for hosting the event. Briefly, about myself. I was born in China before Mao's Cultural Revolution. When Mao died, I was 12 years old, and so I went through the entire years. 10 years Cultural Revolution, and when I went in Shanghai to study law, I wanted to transform China from a rule of man to rule of law. When I realized that I could not achieve that in China under one-party dictatorship, I planned to leave and to come to the United States to study in graduate school legally. And it took me 2 years to prepare and to get a permission to get my passport, get a visa, and quit my job to come to this country. So I have been in the United States for 36 years. And I started, like lots of you started, I had nothing. I had $100 and could not speak English well, and was in debt. But I was determined to come here for freedom and come here for better. It is a land of opportunity. So it took me about 20 years to really study hard and to get them to learn the English and learn the culture, get involved as American citizen in local politics, and later in like federal campaigns, and to tell my stories and tell my messages. Now I'm married with 3 wonderful adult children, self-employed businesswoman, and I'm traveling around the country to give speeches. So this is the greatest country on earth. I hope that by getting involved in politics, I am a role model for lots of people who love freedom, come to America, who wanted to get involved and wanted to pray, to protect all religious freedom, to protect free speech, to protect the rule of law. All those American ideals we hold dear, to our heart. We have to do that in the U.S. Now we have to speak for all the people, including ones inside of China, in Hong Kong, who don't have voices because they lost their fundamental human right, which is free and equal liberty and justice for all the humans. So I'm eager to engage with our audience and taking questions. I have been politically involved for 12 years, and as a grassroots mother, value education, and somebody who values Second Amendment right, or First Amendment right. So I will not stop, even though I did not win my campaign in the general election. But it was a wild ride. It was a great, exciting campaign. I had lots of grassroots. I had lots of people follow me on X, former Twitter, and so that I think that my fight is not over, and I think that freedom, liberty is my North Star. And if we lose America, really there's no place to go. So we all have duty in this country to share our stories and to advocate for human rights and for the people who don't have voices, who are stuck in the totalitarian countries. And so my X is Lily for Liberty. My website is lilytangwilliams.com, and you can follow me there. And I'm eager to engage with you and answer any questions you have. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Lily.
我是1994年到1995年在沈阳陆军总院历练外科实习的时候，参加了一次秘密军事任务。
I interned at Shenyang Military General Hospital from 1994 to 1995 while I was interned there, I participated a secret mission from that hospital.
我们当时被通知就不允许跟任何人打电话进行通讯联系。
To do this to do this secret mission and task, we were told that we were not allowed to reach out to contact anyone. We can't call, we can't contact any person related to us.
我们当时在被点名的有3名军医加上我的实习生，还有1个护士长，1名护士。
At that time, 3 military soldiers and me as an intern, and also a nurse, the head of nurse, were participated in the secret mission.
我们当时紧急集合，坐在是被改装的救护车，就是中间的座位都拆掉了，我们只能坐在2侧。
We were called together, very urgent, and we gathered at an ambulance, but it's not a regular ambulance. It's a cover. It's kind of like reorganized and redecorated ambulance, which is not look like an ambulance, but yeah, some basic ambulance facility inside.
就这个它是军用救护车，它这窗户四周已经被淡蓝色的那个手术石的布密封了，就是看不到，就是外面看不到的。
Hers is a military ambulance, and the ambulance was covered all over by a light blue fabric. So the light blue fabric covered the full size of the whole ambulance, the whole vehicle, and shielding it from any creatures and from the public, so no one can truly recognize it.
我们救护车启动时前面有驱车，在开路，给我们开道。
There is a military car and stood in front of us and guided us the way to the place.
我们直接就是冲上这个高速公路，以很快的速度就开到离大连很近的一个军队的监狱。
We speed up in the highway, and very soon we arrived at a military hospital, which is very close to Dalian. It's a city, it's a northeastern city in China.
就是我们当天晚间是住在这个当地的军队招待所，军事招待所。
We lived at that time when we arrived, we were arranged to live at the military affiliated hotels at that night.
接待我们的军官在晚上给我们摆了一桌酒席，请我们吃饭的时候说我们要执行的这个活体，第2天活体供给的人还不到18周岁。
And yeah.
当天晚上就是这个接待我们的军官在吃饭的这个酒席上告诉我们要第2天的这个活的供体还不到18周。
So at that night, and the generals in the military. The generals in the military and also the soldiers, they just treated us and for a very luxury lunch in a very luxury dinner in that restaurant. And one of the generals just told us, the mission you're gonna do is related to organ transplantation, and the organ donor, the live donor was not even reached 18 weeks. 18 years old.
我们第2天早上很早的起来，就是到那个军队监狱里 护士去做最后对比学习，最后的去对比学习。
The next day, we wake up very early in the morning, and all the nurses went to the military prison, the prison next to the military building, and to do the last blood test and the matching, those kind of things.
我和一名护士进到那个军队监狱里的时候，看到那个就灯非常的暗，那个墙特别的那个潮湿恐怖。那个
A nurse and I went to the prison to watch to the prison, and we realized that the lights are really dimmed, and it's all kind of dim and blue all around, and yeah.
护士对完血型出来跟我说是那个人是活的，就是这护士吓得很颤抖。
Yeah, the nurse, they do the blood test and they do the blood match, and after that, the nurse was trembling, and the nurse told me that actually the donor, the organ donor, the person is still alive.
我们很快就上了救护车之后，救护车就开到了一个非常空旷的地方。
Then we will quickly back up to the ambulance, the military ambulance, and they just drove us to a nearby place, which is a very empty place.
因为这个时候我们救护车那个后门是虚掩的，我通过门缝看到周围四周站满了解放军，拿着冲锋枪。
As I said, the ambulance was covered, although the ambulance was fully covered by the light blue fabric, but from the end, from the back, the door, the truck door was not fully closed. So through that, they have some, I can still see something through the opened, not fully closed door. So through that line, I can see in that empty place, the soldiers and all the generals are just surrounded around us.
这很快就有军人押上来一个人员，但他头部是用军衣包裹，就是那个军服啊包裹着头部，他的四肢被捆绑着，就是那个绳子已经勒到他的肉里了，就是被捆绑。
Yeah. Soon I saw some soldiers arrested a person and sent this person to the car, and the person, I can't see his feet, his or her face, because the person the face was covered by the clothes, military clothes, and also the person's limbs were bound with thin ropes that had cut deeply into his flesh.
他的双手是捆绑在那个后面的绳跟这个腿都在捆绑，都是连在一起。这时，我对面军医告诉我踩住他，就是把他放在这个救护车的地板上。
And the person's hands were tied back, and also his legs were tied too. And another doctor instructed me to step onto that person.
这时候我们在护士的帮助下，快速穿好那个手术服装，就是无菌手套那个手术的服装。
With the nurse help, we quickly got changed to the surgical platform, and like the groom, the doctor, the surgical gown, and also wearing the gloves, the surgical gloves.
这个时候护士长就是拿了一个剪刀，就直接一下就是把他的那个胸前的衣服全都剪开了。
And the nurse quickly used the scissors to open it, to cut the person's clothes, and soon, and the person's chest just show up, being exposed up. Yeah.
护士长又拿了一盆那个消毒液，泼在他的这个前胸跟腹部啊，做了快速的3次消毒。
And the nurse also used the sanitizer, just the sanitizer thing to just spill it in that person's from chest and body, and also the abdomen, the tummy. The nurse did that thing, do the sanitizing about the whole body for like 3 times.
这个时候，我对面的军医拿了一把手术刀，就是这个时候，这个人任何都没有打麻药，身上任何没有用其他的这个麻醉药物。
And they didn't. So at that time, without giving the live patient, without giving the man anesthetics, the military doctor picked up the surgical knife and trying to do the surgery.
这时候，对面军医拿了一把手术刀，直接从他的肩突下做了个大切口，直接开膛破肚。
The doctor sliced open the man's stomach, the below the stomach part, and it just opened it.
这个时候，我们分了2组人，就是取他的左右肾脏，很快的就有一组人取了一个肾脏。对面军医命令我尽快剪断那个动静脉。
So apart from the military doctor who is doing the surgery, just open up the stomach areas, and the others we were divided into 2 groups. One group quickly reached in to move a kidney, and the doctor ordered me to take the other kidney. 可以了，继续。
当时那个血一下就喷溅出来，就是喷射到这个我的这个无菌手套上，就是橡胶手套，这个腹腔流动的都是鲜血。
So as I did so, so much blood gushed out, and then it splashed all over my gowns and my gloves.
我对面军医说：“蔡，我说这不是活的吗？”
The military doctor surgeon urged me to pick up the kidney, kidney, and I just asked back, "Isn't this person still alive?"
我说他是活的，他说你踩住他。
And the doc said, "Step onto him, don't let him move."
这时候对面军医命令我说：“你要摘取他一个眼球。”
And then the doctor gave me another instruction, asking me to grab the eyeball from that person.
因为眼科要用。
Because, the eye doctor, the eye department needs to use the eyeballs.
这时候我看见他拽掉了这个人头上的那个包裹的军装。
Because they need to take off the clamped eyeballs, and so they took off the face cover for that person. So I saw that person.
你看这人的双眼在直直的看着我，就是特别恐怖的那种看着我。
And I thought that person staring at me was horrifying. And in that eye, I saw the pain and horrifying things.
我说我实在做不了，我当时都呆若木鸡，就是特别恐惧。
I was horrifying beyond words. I didn't know what to do. I was so frightened. So I told the military surgeon that I don't know how to do. I couldn't do that.
因为我从来没有见过这么恐惧的。
Because I've never seen any horrifying things like this before. 继续。
这时候我对面的军医拿了一把皮血钳，直接摁住他的前额，直接刮了一个完整的眼球出来。
So at that time, the surgeon doctor used 2 fingers pressed on the person's eyelids and 2 fingers and pressed on the eyelids, and with another hand holding the hemostat and clapping both of the man's eyes very soon, immediately.
这时候取出来2颗完整的肾脏，还有体检球都放在恒温盒里，恒温盒里。
And let me repeat that part a little bit. So the doctor, with 2 fingers pressed on the eyelids and with a hemostat in another hand, the doctor clamped each of the man's eyes and ripped them out. After ripping out those eyeballs, they put it in a red wooden box.
这时候有军医敲了一下那个救护车的这个额板，就是用他们这个军人呢用鼻梁机，就是呼叫了一下，就是来了几个军人就把这个人体那个2米长的那个塑料袋子就拉走。
So the military surgeon, after doing ripped the eyeballs out, he pressed on the side of the ambulance and to give the summon to the soldiers, and the soldiers just talked to the something, to the calling thing, and then they quickly put the eyeballs in plastic bags, and another group of people just shipped those eyeballs out.
我当时很惊恐的时候，我这是拉到什么地方去了？那个军医回答我说，这是处理掉，就是烧掉了。
I was very horrified and I was very frightened. I asked, where are you guys going to put this kind of stuff? And the military soldier and the military person said us, we're going to deal with it. Probably we're going to destroy it. Yeah, cremated it. Yeah, cremated the body.
这时候我们救护车关上车门，最快速度就是上了高速，开回到沈阳陆军总院。
So after this, and we shut the ambulance doors and use the fastest speed to drive back to the general military hospital in Shenyang.
当我们拿着这个取好的香火的脏器到了手术室这个门前的时候，我一看到那个手术室那个灯早就不亮了，就是里面的有医嘱医会员早就准备好这个做手术。
When we arrived at that hospital, the military hospital in Shenyang, I realized that operation area, the operation room slides have already turned up, and we hold the box of eyeballs to that room, and I feel like they've already been prepared and waiting for us and waiting for the eyeballs to arrive.
当时主任为了培养我，让我也到这手术台上去做这个移植手术，因为我当时很年轻，他为了培养我。
At that time, I was very young, and the leaders of the general hospital just want to train me and to let me have more experience. So they encouraged me to also to do the operation, to the surgery, transplantation surgery, to practice that.
因为我当时人整个要崩溃了，就虚脱了，我说我受不了。
As I was
让我在旁边休息。
because after witnessed all the things, I was so sickened and so frightened to be useful. So they asked me to, sit by the side to have a rest.
我就
bedside and watching from a few yards away as seeing them to doing the surgery, seeing the surgery getting progressed.
当时做完手术，我们一起吃饭的时候，我就跟主任说：“我说我受不了了，我要请假回家。”
After the team complete the transplantation surgery, and the high rank officials and the military leaders want to invite us to have a lunch or dinner together, and I told them I'm very sick, I can't join the dinner.
因为我坐在那个饭桌上的时候，看见那些肉眼前都浮现的是人体那个被切开的那个流动的血，所以我当时只是特别恐惧。
But they still asked me to go, so I still went. When I sitting at the dinner table, I saw the dishes, the meat. I felt like they were bleeding, and it's just I feel very hard to eat anything.
当时主任允许我请假回家，我回到家就发着高烧。
My supervisor allowed me to take some days off, so soon after I went back home, I had a fever.
因为不知道是被吓的还是累的，当时浑身颤抖。
I was trembling for a long time. I don't know, I was too frightened because I was too frightened or I was too tired.
我的家人，我的母亲就问我说：“你怎么了？”因为我真的不敢告诉他们，怕给他们带来生命危险。
Yeah, my mother saw me like this. She asked, "What's wrong with you?" I wasn't there to tell her the truth.
我只能简单的跟他说了一下，我说我做了一个人体的这个器官的手术，就是我不敢把这个居士秘密告诉他，怕给我家人带来生命危险。
I just simply told her that I just finished surgery, but I was not there to tell her the secret mission that I was there at the time.
我这个时候，当我身体好了之后，我就决定我不想留在这个沈阳陆军总院这个地方。
继续。
就是当我这个在家里休息好了之后，我就决定不想留在这个沈阳陆军总院。
After I recovered, I decided, experience those horrifying things. I don't want to stay in that, in the Shenyang General Military Hospital. I want to leave that hospital.
所以，我觉得这正常人根本做不了这样的工作。
I feel like normal people can't do job like this. Can't do surgery like this.
因为在我内心中，要是从良心角度讲，我觉得这项工作正常人会崩掉。
Because I am a person with common sense, with conscience. So if a person with common sense and conscience who does this job continuously, he gonna be, go crazy.
所以我当时就选择了一家地方的医院，就是洲际工业驻辽宁的一家医院，叫第53医院。
So I left that hospital. I chose to work at a localized hospital in Liaoning. It's called 153 Hospital.
我从这以后再也不敢提起这件事，因为我知道它的后果会有多么严重，我会给我家人带。
Yeah, after that, I never mentioned about this experience. I I'm too afraid to tell this thing to my family or to anyone, because if I did so, I know I'm gonna bring them into trouble as well.
没想到在2005年，就2005年的时候，我在北京。
However, in 2005, I went to Beijing.
就是有个中央政治局常委身边的亲信，有一天去看我，因为他怕我在北京出事儿，他去家里看我。
看你干嘛？说完。
就是因为他们跟我们家关系很好，因为我父亲救过他岳母的命，就是经常到我家里看我。
So a relative from Chinese Communist a relative from Chinese Communist Party's high official member, a relative from that high officials just visited me.
因为在聊天的时候就说到了这个东北迫害法轮功非常严重的事情。
So he visited me, we talked, we had discussion, and we mentioned about, in northeastern China, the persecution of Falun Gong is really severe.
他当时非常紧张，什么话都不敢跟我说，那个站起来就走啊，我就出门送他。
Hearing this, and he was very nervous. He stood up, wanted to leave, and I stood up and followed him, sing him, accompany him to the door.
他当走到马路上的时候，他突然回头盯着我，一个字一个字的说。
I just accompanied her out of my house, and we walked on the road, and suddenly he turned back and staring at me and saying to me word by word, very slow.
他说在湖北武汉市湖北公安厅的后花园关满了法轮功学员，其中还有未成年的孩子。
He said in Hubei province, Wuhan city, under the back garden of the Hubei province Public Security Bureau, it's full of detained Falun Gong practitioners. Some of them are underage kids.
他又补充说：“我去过那个地方，就是他去过那个地方。”
After saying that sentence, he added, I went that place before.
我当时从他眼神当中就看出，这是一件太重大的事情。
From his eyes, I know it's a big news. It's an important news.
我也不敢说什么，他上车就走了。
I wasn't there to comment anything, and he, left. He just ran up the car and left.
我回到家里就决定必须离开中国大陆。
I went back home. I set up my mind. I need to leave China.
我在2005年底快过年的时候，就是从北京机场飞到了越南，通过越南到了泰国，经过联合国保护。
So, protected by the United Nations, by the end of 2005, I took a flight from Beijing to Vietnam, and then I flew from Vietnam to Thailand under the refugee application.
泰国官员当时告诉我说，有很多中国的特工，就是中共的特工在泰国，要么就是提醒我说你可能随时有生命危险，
told me that there are a lot of Chinese communist spies in Thailand. So they reminded me to be mindful of this and just be safe.
而很快，联合国给我保护，但是呢，不让我在亚洲搞飞机，他们让我通过欧洲的维也纳，飞到了加拿大，因为加拿大政府给我全家给予保护。
And soon I was granted the refugee status, but they don't want me to fly from Asia to the country. They asked me to flew to the Vienna first, and then flew from Vienna to Canada.
我到加拿大之后，隐姓埋名，因为加拿大这个媒体啊，大多数都被共产党渗透。
After I arrived and settled in Canada, I used another name. I don't want to expose myself to the public, especially the media, because I don't know whether they're trustworthy.
因为我到加拿大之后啊，就包括坐地铁啊，去唐人街回来都被跟踪。我的母亲和我一起坐车也被跟踪，所以我们都高度紧张。
Even though I arrived in Canada for a while, and when I went out to take the tea, take the subway, or sometimes me, sometimes I'm with my mom, we take the public transportation. We could feel someone was stalking behind us, so we were very nervous, very worried about our safety.
所以那个，由于大纪元和独家采访我报道之后，我基本上都不能单独一个人出门。
After I accepted an Epoch Times interview, and they've interviewed me once for around an hour, and they also published articles. So after I was being interviewed and the article being published, I was not there. I could not go out on my own.
我为什么要鼓起勇气来出来作证这个活摘器官这件事情？
Why I just use my courage to tell the public what I thought and to be the witness.
因为我知道那个现场的残酷无法用语言形容。
Because I know, the current thing, the surgical operation thing, how horrible that was. It's so horrifying and beyond words to describe.
我希望中国的这种活摘器官罪恶呀，早日停止。
I hope the organ harvesting things in mainland China can stop as soon as possible.
我同时也希望任何国家、任何民族都不要再遭受这种活摘器官的这个苦难。
I also hope no matter which in those civil criminal and those immoral organ harvesting activities won't happen in any country and in any nation or happen on any ethnic groups.
其实我要呼吁全世界各国政府制止共产党的这种活摘器官的罪恶。
I just want to encourage the government from all around the countries. Officials can step out to urge the Chinese Communist Party to stop doing the organ harvesting.
这也是对全世所有人类上所有国家的人民一种尊重啊，一种保护。
Because doing so, you actually protect every person on the earth, person all around the world, and respect their life. Thank you. 谢谢.
Thank you, Dr. Zheng Zhi. It was an honor to have you join us online and to tell your story. I think this is very important for all the audiences listening. So, 谢谢你.